So, I'm in this online community called the Public Health Club, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a group for people who are working on their career goals or their entrepreneurship goals in the field of public health. And earlier this year, they did a giveaway for this book called The 12-Week Year. The 12-Week Year is basically a self help book that focuses on the idea that if you set your goals a full year out, 365 days, it's harder to achieve than if you worked on it for a smaller period of time, like 12 weeks. And so it gives you like tips and tricks for achieving or working towards your goals in 12 weeks or about 3 months. I did my first 12-week year in April, and I'm starting my second round this month in July. And so I want to talk about what I've learned from it and basically how you can apply it. And my main goals I want to tackle for the 12-week year are to read and write more, essentially, among other goals. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Nadia. I talk about public health and pop culture. Sometimes I combine the two, sometimes I don't, just depends on how I'm feeling. And so, without further ado, let's get started. So, basically, why even do this? I like reading, as you know, for my channel, and I also like writing. And I've been so focused on like career and work stuff in the past year that I think my other interests have kind of fallen by the wayside. So I really wanted to spend time focusing effort into doing those things I actually like. The book itself is actually a workbook, so there's things to read and you can also answer questions within the book itself. And one of the main things it focuses on is tactics. So you have your goals that you set for your 12 weeks, and you also set a tactic that'll help you reach that goal. Like, for example, for reading, I said I want to read 20 pages a day. That was my tactic to read more. And then for writing, I set my goal as a weekly goal to write 500 words a week, which that doesn't sound like a lot, but I wanted to kind of ease myself into it. And in the book, it says to not set a goal that's so big that you can't reach it, but not set it so low that it's too easy to make. You're supposed to track your performance on these tactics every day of the week, and then at the end of the week, you're supposed to audit your performance essentially. And I made these little printouts to put on my wall that I filled out every single day to track my progress. And I calculated how many pages I read, how many days I met my goal, and then also like how many words I wrote, etc. And the longer I did this, the more I realized like what worked and what didn't, and that influenced how I'm approaching my round 2 of the 12-week year starting in July to October. For example, I set a weekly goal of 500 words to make it a little easier for myself to reach my goal, but setting it as a weekly goal rather than a daily goal was not great because basically how I function is that when I do sit down to write, I tend to write quite a lot in one go. And so if I missed a day, wrote 0 words, I'd be like, oh, I'll just catch up later in the week. But then sometimes I just wouldn't catch up. Like looking at my tracker, there was one day where I wrote 700 words in a day. And that was actually a pretty good week in general because I wrote 900 words total. But then there's another week where I wrote 112 words in one day, and then the rest of the week I wrote basically nothing. So the weekly goal is not the best for me. And so this time around I'm doing a small word count daily goal, and that's been a lot easier because I can kind of like trick myself into doing more. And so that's just an example of how you kind of like tweak your tactics to make it easier to reach your goals over time. And the reason I avoided the daily word count goal in the first place is because I was just in that mindset of like the NaNoWriMo type 1,667 words per day. And I'm like, I can't do that. I have a job and other things going on, so I don't think that's really feasible. But having some kind of goal was better than just kind of letting myself push it off to later in the week. On the other hand, I switched up my reading goal this time around to instead of 20 pages a day, I'm challenging myself to read one book per week. And that was because even if I read quite a lot of pages in a day, I find myself reading the same book for just a very long time. And so I want to see if I can finish books quicker since I have a very long TBR and things I really want to get to. So we'll see if that works this time around. Also, I forgot to mention the other reason I went from a daily page goal to a weekly read one book goal is that I read both ebooks and physical books. And so the page counts between the two are not equivalent, and I was mixing them, so it's not really
an accurate count anyway.
Also, having the kind of like daily, weekly tracker, it kind of allows me to see like when life circumstances or when other things might be impacting my ability to work towards what I'm working on. Like I know like I've traveled quite a bit recently, and so obviously weeks while I'm traveling, my performance has been impacted because I'm focused on other things. And then I can also see weeks where I've done really well, like where I met my goal like 4 out of 7 days of the week, or I met my weekly writing goal, or things like that. And so I think this is a really helpful method to kind of make more progress on the things I care about. And this is also not really the first time I considered this before I won this giveaway. There's another creator on here who did a whole thing where she does like big whiteboard or big poster board day where she plans out her goals for the next 12 weeks on a big whiteboard, and she has like these abstract goals and smaller goals, etc. And so I thought that was really fascinating, and that kind of primes me to be interested in winning this giveaway because I wanted to like really try this like shorter term goal setting and see if that helped me, which I think it has so far. I would definitely recommend checking out the 12-week year. You don't need the actual book. I think there's a website as well, but just the concept of it. If you have trouble like working towards your goals over a longer period of time, maybe a shorter period of time will work for you, or maybe you just need like a different approach to figuring out how you want to get closer to your goals. And yeah, I really enjoy this and I'm going to continue it. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and I will see you all next time.